You all walk into a tavern. It's mid-evening, and the bartender is handing out free drinks after losing a bet to a hooded man at the bar. You all sit down at the table, and may you all please introduce yourselves. Oh? You don't have your characters yet? I guess I should teach you all then. Welcome to my tutorial on how to make a first level character using D&D Beyond. The first thing you need to do is sign in. I'm already signed in because I don't want to share my personal information, but it is free. There is a paywall behind certain things that need a subscription, but for the ease of everyone here, I'm just going to use my free account so you guys know what is available to you. After signing up, you either click on the Create a Character button, or you go to Collections, hit My Characters, and then, once it loads, you hit Create a Character here. There are 3 options on character creation methods: Standard, Quick Build, and Randomize. Randomize is, well, as it says, you get a character of any level with random statistics by setting parameters. Which means that you pick the level, and it just gives you something random. With Quick Build, you pick the race, you pick the class, it picks everything else. Standard, which I'm showing you today, is you get to pick the level, the race, the class, basically everything. I'm going to be showing help text because I think that would be helpful to show it on screen while I'm explaining things, so anything I don't explain, you can pause and read the help text that should hopefully give you more information. That being said, let's hit Standard. Alright, the first thing we see is a page. It is a page of text, which is from help text, I believe. It's basically explaining how you create your character, explains character levels, and your preferences. What you need to do is, as said here, you need to choose a race, which is basically your fantasy species, a class, which is basically your job, such as, if you're a rogue, a wizard, a warlock, a paladin, an artificer. Did I say artificer twice? I am not sure. The fantasy job chooses what weapons you can use, what spells you can use, if you can heal, if you can fight well, if you can... It basically determines a lot of things about your character. I did say that classes do determine what spells you can use. There are some races that do have spells inherently with them, but you get most of your spells from your class. Your abilities are basically the, I believe, 6 numbers that determine how good you are at things. If you have a 20, you are really, really, really good at something. If you have a 7, you're pretty bad at it. Like, my character in one of my campaigns has 20 intellect. He's really smart, he asks a lot of questions, he can figure a whole bunch of stuff out. But he has 7 strength, which means he can lift at most 107 pounds. It's been great. Alright, now that I've somewhat explained abilities, I will go more into it later. I am going to description. Description is basically all the little details about your character, like their alignment. I don't usually do alignment, but it's there. Their background, their bonds, basically everything about your character that is not based on race, class, abilities, or equipment. Speaking of equipment, it is what you have on you. It's your weapons, it's your your weapons, it's your torches, it's your food, it's basically everything you have on you. What's next is basically the page where you get to see your character sheet, all in its full-on glory. Character level is how good you are at what you do. I've already said this about abilities. Abilities are kind of like inherent. Like, oh yes, you are like just naturally good at this stuff. You can like up your abilities when you level up. Levels are basically, when you level up, you just get good. You get better. From level 1 to level 2, your character could learn spells. They could, like, in level 3, you could, like, choose, like, an archetype for rogue, which means that you get a whole bunch of different abilities. So yeah, leveling up is good. What you need to do with this is create a character name. What shall we name it? What shall we name it? Evanescence. Nala. And Evanescence and Nala. You can choose a little thumbnail. I'm not gonna. It takes too long. Character preferences are basically all the little things that once you get more experience, you start to learn. Your sources are basically where your information comes from. Dice rolling is digital dice rolling. I probably won't be using that for my campaign. Optional features, milestones, hit point types, prerequisites. Prerequisites are basically like when you're choosing a feat or a class, there might be requirements for said class. So you might need to be at least strength 10 to change into a certain class. Encumbrance is basically like, oh, I'm carrying a lot of stuff. If I'm carrying too many stuff, is there consequences? Modifiers, the ability score modifier display, doesn't really matter much. And character privacy. I'm gonna make this public so that I can put my link in the description so you can look over and see what's up. Or you can look over my character and see what's up. Alright, now we're choosing a race. A race is your fantasy species, as I've said. With choosing a species, there's certain traits you get, like the ability score increases. Tieflings have charisma, elves have dexterity, I think Goliaths have either strength or constitution. I'll check. It says how old you can age, your general alignment if you choose to play by alignment. I'm not choosing to play by alignment, so people in my campaign, you do not have to choose an alignment. Your size, which is basically pretty important in actual gameplay. A medium is just like a normal humanoid shape. Small is like short. Tiny is like you are a literal Tinkerbell. There's a whole bunch of sizes out there. You can get really big, or really small. Your speed is how many squares you can go during a round of combat. Your languages is what you can speak. And your subraces, not all the fantasy species have subraces, but some do, which is pretty cool. Here's a list of all the races available in the free version. There is, I can't pronounce it, Arokra, which is a bird person, Dragonborn, which is like a dragony person, a dwarf, which is a short, stout, sturdy person, an elf, which is a thin and graceful person, a genasi, which is basically a spirit of one of the 4 elements, air, water, earth, fire, a gnome, which is like a garden gnome without a hat. A Goliath, which is a big, strong person. Half-elf, who is half-elf, half something else. Usually it's half-human. I sometimes play half-elves as half-other things. It's fun. Half-orcs, which are basically like a half-elf, but with orc heritage. Halflings are basically hobbits. There's humans. And there is tieflings. Tieflings and Aasimar are basically the opposites of each other. A tiefling has infernal heritage and an Aasimar has divine heritage. Once you click a race, you can confirm here. This shows you a little overview of the race. Here's the racial traits, such as charisma and +1 to 2 other ability scores. Half-elves are basically my favorites because of this in particular. Ability score increase, they have dark vision, fey ancestry, skill versatility, and languages. I am choosing a race now. Once on this page, you can choose which ability scores get increased, and everything else having to do with your race. I am choosing intelligence and wisdom for my 2 scores that are being increased. Skill versatility. I am choosing, let's say, Arcana and, let's say, Insight, because why not? And 1 more language, which would probably be Celestial. As I said, your class is basically your job. It determines a whole bunch of stuff about your character, so choose wisely. Read through all the classes, or at least the classes that interest you before you choose. Because a whole bunch of things depend on your class. A whole bunch of things depend on your race too, but not as much as class. Multi-classing is something that you can choose later in the game, like once you level up, you can go from a sorcerer to an artificer. You'd still have your sorcerer's levels, but starting from then, you could start earning artificer levels. It's kind of like getting really, really, really good at writing, and then suddenly going over to drawing. You still have that ability to write, but suddenly you're starting to gain abilities in drawing. To use a real world example. Looking over at this, I would say that Evanescence would be a sorcerer. Here is basically all you need to read when you want to confirm a class. I will let you all read over this. I'll let you all read over this when you make your own class. You can determine if it suits your character or go to a different class and see if that suits your character. But yeah, I am using this class. As what happened with race, there is also stuff you need to decide when you make a sorcerer, or when you make a rogue, or when you make a cleric. When you make any class, there are choices you need to make for that class. You can choose 2 more proficiencies. Here's basically what you're good at. You get pluses to them. I'm gonna say persuasion and religion. Proficiencies, I've shown them before. They're basically what you're better at. I also got to choose a bit with race as well. Sorcerer's origin, which is basically what made you a sorcerer. Draconic bloodline is the only free one. Draconic ancestor is basically what you're resistant to and what damage type you really like to do. All the dragons have different types of damage types. I know that gold and red is fire. Blue and white is cold. I think green is acid. I can't remember the rest. I'm gonna say that she has gold dragon heritage. Because that's what I had her uncle as a D&D character for. So, family bloodline, yeah, gold dragon. As you can read, these are the main 6 ability scores that I mentioned earlier. Strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. They are really important to the game. You would normally want really high scores, but it is sometimes really good role-playing to have low scores as well. As I said before, my wizard with 20 intelligence and 0 strength, there have been roleplay opportunities with that. He goes into a room and recognizes a fireball sigil trap on the floor and writes it down. Wow, he can suddenly do fireball sigils now. But a few minutes later, he goes outside the room. He goes outside the room. There's a river we need to jump over. And he needs to go up to a really strong character and it's just like, can you help me get across, please? Because I can't jump this. Which adds character interaction into your party. So, while you would be aiming for really high stats, sometimes really low stats is good for roleplay. Alright, for generation methods, there are 3. Standard array, manual rolled, and point buy. I am doing, for my campaign that is happening later this October, I'm doing standard array for it, so I'll show you how to do standard array. Basically, you get a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 numbers, and each one of these has one of them. Since I am playing a sorcerer, I am doing charisma for 15, wisdom for 14, dexterity 13, intelligence 12, constitution, strength. And the pluses I chose before for my race helped me. See, my racial bonus is +2. Suddenly I have 17. Look, my racial bonus for wisdom, which I chose before, was +1. Also for intelligence, +1. So my stats right now are strength 8, which is -1 modifier, dexterity 13 +1, constitution 10 +0, 13, 15, 70. While you have the scores, the modifiers are what you add to dice. If you roll dexterity, you don't add 13, you add 1. The higher number you have in your dexterity total score, the higher your modifier would be. As I said before, character descriptions. This is basically your character as a person. You also choose your background. Your background is basically who you are before you joined the party. It's basically what your life was like. It gives you a few things. It gives you what money you kind of had before you joined the party. It gives you role-playing tips, like, in the back of your mind. Like, okay, I was a wealthy aristocrat, so I would see this specific character as scum of the earth. Okay, I shall treat them as scum of the earth. Alright. Backgrounds. I'm gonna say that Evanescence was a noble. This gives you a little blurb about nobles, and then it shows, oh hey, there's proficiency again. You get to choose one more. I'd say that she would be good at, let's say, medicine. Gaming set, let's say she is good at dragon chess. I get one more language, and I say that is infernal. Here's a few more things, like position of privilege, suggested characteristics. You don't need to choose any of these. These are just suggestions for starting out role-playing. You can choose them if you want. It's really funny when you choose them. I rolled for a character trait last night, and I rolled gambling, which led to some really, really funny character interactions. So, sometimes it is best to roll traits. Here are your character details, basically their alignment. Evanescence would be probably chaotic neutral. Their faith, I'd say the Aryan Pantheon, which is basically the Pantheon in my books. Lifestyle, she's wealthy. This is the physical characteristics, such as hair. Femme appearing. She, her. Personal characteristics. These are all like the personality traits and stuff like that. And any other notes. After choosing all of these, you move on to equipment. This is your starting equipment at level 1. So if you're doing a level 5 character, talk to your DM. DM communication is very important when creating a character. When playing a higher level character, you may be allowed to choose better equipment. I dungeon mastered a level 5 campaign, and I let each of the characters choose one magical item to help them. They wouldn't have known that if they didn't communicate with me. Alright, for starting equipment, we're gonna say equipment. Let's say any simple weapon, she would have a quarterstaff. Component couch or arcane focus. Arcane focus. Let's say that she has, well, let's say the staff and the quarterstaff are basically the same weapon. Dungeoneering pack or explorer's pack. Let's say she has an explorer's pack, which would include a backpack, a bedroll, a mess kit, a tinderbox, 10 torches, 10 days of rations, a water skin, and 50 feet of hempen rope. And these are basically everything from her background. I add the starting equipment to their inventory, and suddenly, they have all this stuff. We are now on the What's Next tab. You can either view your character sheet or export it to PDF. I'm going to view the character sheet. Here is your character's character sheet. There is one more thing that you need to know if you are a spellcaster. If you're not a spellcaster, this tutorial is done. Thank you for coming. I hope you have a wonderful day. Spellcasters, stay after class for like a second. We're going to be choosing your spells. You go to this tab, and then you go over to manage your spells. You go to your spell slots, you hit add spells. You only have 2 first level spell slots, so the only spells that you can choose are level 1 spells. As you level up, you will be able to get more higher level spells. The level of spell you know does not match up with your character level. A level 5 sorcerer knows level 3 spells. So, let's go through this. Cantrips. Cantrips are basically level 0 spells. You can cast them whenever you want with no consequences. Let's say, create bonfire, firebolt, mage hand, and message. Pretty good spells. Go through all the spells and all of their little descriptions to see what you personally want. I am just choosing this because I'm doing a really quick tutorial. For level 1s, I'm going to be choosing Disguise Self and Ice Knife. Alright. Now, you have all your spells. When you go to your spells, suddenly they're there. And you click them, and you can see the descriptions. Thank you again for watching this tutorial. It's my very first one. If you liked this, comment down below and I'll do more. I'll go more in depth in each of the classes and each of the races. I really, really like D&D and I like dungeon mastering it. As always, you are valid, you are worthy, you are loved, and I hope that you all have a wonderful day. Farewell.